Also, I think it's the perfect lead-in to our panel discussion, which we have on the agenda here for 4:30. So we're just about on time. So we're going to have, we have Helen, who should be coming back to join us, Camisa. We're also going to have Jeremy again. And we are, so our aim is to have an exchange between these speakers, but also, of course, participants are a big part of this. There are questions I know from Mary, for example. The panel is the perfect place, I think, to bring those in. And I think just to kick it off, I have a thought that is a question I would like to put out. It's been very clear to me listening to these speakers, this word partnership. Camisa saying that they're having a difficulty knowing what to do next. Jeremy saying they're in London, they're in a similar situation. Mary's question, about what do middle income countries do, for example, or what do countries with smaller businesses do? And the answer keeps coming back to me: knowledge sharing, partnerships, some kind of a workshopping forum where people can come together and work through these issues. So I want to put that out there and say, what do our speakers think about the chances of something like this coming about? So not just C40, but something for everybody, where everybody can come in and participate if they need to. Anybody that needs it.
I think Mary had this question, and are you still here, Mary? Then you could post that question directly. I think that was a very important about the small and the situation of Uganda. Here, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good evening, colleagues. Maybe I could have missed some parts. Actually, I thought my question had been answered. But yeah, the first speaker really presented some examples of companies coming up and investing in green financing. And my question was, how can economies or, relatively small economies now like Uganda, with the majority of the private sector who are, small to medium enterprises, how can we really leverage, green financing from such kind of sectors? Are there any strategies probably that has worked either in South Africa or in other African countries that we could learn from? Yeah.
I think that's an absolutely great question. Who will respond to that? I'm not sure if Jeremy joined us already, but perhaps Helen, can you say something on that?
I think Jeremy would be better placed, to be honest, just because he's got much more view into Africa than I have. I'm sort of very UK focused. I don't know if he's around. If not, I could sort of talk a bit about the role of coalitions that you sort of started with Carol and their role. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we should wait then for Jeremy. Yeah, so he hopefully will join us every minute. So then perhaps then you can pick up the question of Carol about the coalitions and partnerships.
Yeah, so I mean that's really our model, is that you will not find out what the barriers are unless you bring together multiple stakeholders to understand like the full spectrum. What we have found is that there's lots of well-intentioned NGOs, for example, who will put out a report on like, this is what needs to be done. They haven't had the finance sector or the private sector in the room. So unfortunately, a lot of what their recommendations are cannot be acted in the real world, because it's just, if they'd had the finance sector in, the finance sector told them, we can't do that because of these regulations, for example, we have to produce certain returns, etc. But tell us what we could do. Let's work together on coming up with, is the barrier our end is the returns, the barrier your end is this, let's figure it out together. And so as I'll say, that's our model. We bring academia and government and local government, but also just what I'm realizing isn't for the UK, like we've got a levelling up agenda, which means that there are parts of the UK that are suffer from greater inequity than other parts of the UK, should we say. And the government has been really clear that they're trying to help those particular areas of the country. And it's really clear that it has to be even at a micro level when you start to unlock barriers. So it has to be sort of regional and local. And I think that probably translates anywhere around the world, really. And it takes forever. What you don't want in these coalitions is death by committee. You've been in a lot of development of initiatives where everything gets done by consensus, which means nothing ever gets done. So there's that sort of balance. I think it's great to have these massive task force and coalitions, but in the end, someone has to hold the pen. You can't just have everyone chime in. So I'm all for that. We need more coalitions. I would say local, regional, national and cross-stakeholder would be absolutely a way to go. Camisa, I see you've turned on your video. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, from my side, there are partnerships that have worked in the past. I always go back to our long-standing partnership, climate change partnership with the city of Bremen, and can actually go out on a limb and say that partnership actually helped bridge a gap between the municipality and the civil society space in Durban. Because in South Africa, civil society and the government, they don't trust each other. So I think taking from what Helen has said, such partnerships have to be approached with caution, and the intention of the partnership has to be made clear upfront. And where government is part of a coalition or a partnership, I have seen a tendency to abuse, where people have not been getting any joy out of government on certain things. So now that they have someone sitting in this committee that is looking at certain things, so they have an ear that is listening. So it becomes a catch-all for everything that has been going wrong, everything that they've been unhappy with a particular sphere of government. But, carefully thought out partnerships, for me, they actually work a great deal. City-to-city partnerships, I can say they work a great deal. As part of our Durban climate change strategy, we also formed partnerships with neighboring cities, because as Durban, we are the only metro in KwaZulu-Natal Kingdom. We understood that climate change impacts have no boundaries. So the global community will want to partner with us. So whatever that we gain out of those partnerships, we wanted to share with our neighboring, satellite cities. So through the Durban Climate Change Compact, I think it's been over 10 years now. It was started in 2011. We managed to capacitate other cities so that they can get access to everything that Durban has access to through the partnerships that we make globally. So in short, I love the idea of partnerships. There are partnerships that are very difficult to enter into. For example, with the Transformative Riverine Management Program, we have battled to get into the space of the private sector. We would like to have a partnership there with the private sector, because we see them as a key player or key stakeholder in the implementation. But and this is something that I was hoping that maybe Helen could maybe shed some light on, with the green financing that is available out there, and to what extent would they fund partnerships? So if implementation of something would benefit from a partnership of sorts, in our legislation in South Africa, there is a provision for partnerships, but it is so clinical. It's not, and it gets turned into a tender process that attracts people that want to benefit from governments, funds and all that. We don't necessarily want to go that route, but we are looking at something like, okay, there is private sector that is willing to, like the question that you were asking, saying that would you be willing to invest in something even if the return on investment was not that high? There is private sector that would want to invest. Maybe we have what we call a special rating area. So where you charge people in that area per agreement an additional rate to what they are already paying, so that maybe they get their refuse removed maybe 5 times a week and they don't mind. So we're thinking, for example, so if around an industrial an industrial community in Pinetown, there's a stream that goes through there, and that stream is dirty all the time. If we say to them, okay, we're gonna keep the stream clean for you, would you mind, as all these industries here, each of you pay 200 Rand extra in your rates a month, and we ensure that this the stream is cleaned. But to set something like that up, it takes so much, and we don't have people that are employed to do that. And the one such partnerships, we have a Section 24 company that we set up. It was a pilot, and it did take quite a while to set it up. And I was wondering if this could be something that, the green financing institutions, if this is something that they could look into, so that the municipality is not even involved in the monies, and the monies don't even come to the municipality. The monies sit in a structure that is overseen by that partnership.
Yeah, so one, I think that's totally doable. In terms of, are there green finance, who would sort of manage that partnership? It would be tough just to find financing for that partnership that isn't NGO, government, that kind of pot, philanthropic. I think philanthropy would be really interested in doing something like that. There is a model in the UK which is being exported now, which I think, it's very European, to be fair, but I think as a model, I think you could sort of see how it could translate. It's called LENS, it's Landscape Enterprise Networks, maybe. And it was started by Nestle. And Nestle wanted to transition some of its UK dairy farms to, I think it was organic milk or more regenerative practices, something like that, or maybe it was around net zero. I can't remember what their initial remit was, but they wanted to transition some of their supply chain and those farmers to being more nature friendly, basically. And they understood that if they did that, there would be additional benefits in terms of there'd be less pollution running into nearby rivers, which would benefit a water utility. And so they brought in a water utility and then also looked at businesses in the surrounding area that would also benefit, and developed with land managers and farmers around the area and things like the Rivers Trust, what they call a partnership, where all the beneficiaries of the change in land use will pay for that change in land use. But and so what they're doing now is they're setting up a special purpose vehicle that is funded separately to all of those interests that will basically be the financing. So everyone pays their money in, like you said, their 200 Rand or whatever is it, or you said, you know, and then that SPV pays the farmers to make the land changes. So that kind of model is exactly it. But that took Nestle to lead on funding the whole partnership to be set up and get going, I believe. And now it's sort of able to sort of work, it'll be spun out and it will sit as its own special purpose vehicle, its own name and company. And they've done that a couple across the UK, and I believe they're now doing it in the Netherlands. But absolutely, if you could, in your example, if one of those businesses along the river had a strong sustainability agenda and could lead, then they could potentially pay for that partnership to be established with the view that eventually it will be spun out in an independent special purpose vehicle and run independently. So there's no favouring of one company over another. So yes, but I haven't seen it done elsewhere. It's not rocket science when you think about it, but it is. I know it took them like several years to get that partnership set up because the amount of contracts that were needed.
I would like to mention that we have that partnership between Durban and Bremen since 10 years, and I think that's a very lively partnership because it's on different levels. There are several civil society initiatives from the sanitation sector to cultural initiatives and painters. And on the other hand, we have also the state institutions involved. For example, our government is dealing with the municipality or with the government of Durban. And at the same time, also, for example, our utilities are exchanging and really cooperating in the sector. And perhaps we have a little advantage that in Bremen, it's a bit easier to combine civil sector and government. So we are sitting together, we have a round table where we exchange and see what we can develop jointly. So I understood that's a bit more difficult in Durban. But I think that perhaps one thing to mention, that partnership has been even awarded in Germany with a pretty high-ranking award, sustainability prize, which was given for the partnership projects of Durban, Windhoek, and Bremen. And so I think, but on the other hand, what you mentioned also, Helen, is how to raise money for that. I think there's a lot of, on the practical level, so there's a lot of, exchange. People will go to Durban and they come here to Bremen, but and we do joint projects, but it's, let's say, in terms of needed money, it's very small. So there is some local funding, and here from Bremen or from Durban as well, I think, and some funding from the national for the sanitation sector, for example, or for natural-based solutions in the eThekwini area. But it's pretty small. And so I think that's an interesting issue, how we can raise more money for that partnership. And there was a hand from Sama for that.
Yes, I just wanted to remind you of some of the outcomes from the Bremen and Durban partnership. The River Horse Valley wetland reconstruction, where the business sector has continuously maintained that wetland. I think we need to revisit that project and see how we can replicate it to other business sectors, and probably because I think it's very easy to pilot and show that something is happening, but now to have it replicated somewhere else, it's very difficult. I think it's one of the projects we can revisit, CHUMISA, and probably get the River Horse Valley to engage other private sector in terms of, encouraging them to enter into partnerships with the city and investing in such projects. I just got reminded of that. Yeah.
I would like to come back to one question which Helen had at the end of your presentation. You were asking something like, what is more important, let's say the consumer engagement and commitment, or do we need the big solutions and regulations and so on to have the big pushes? And 2 or 3 days ago, we had talk here, also an online talk of the University of Bremen with very prominent climate scientists from Germany, and also from some meteorologists and so on. And there was very clear that they said we need the big solutions. That's the most important. So I don't think we can't play the one position against the other, but I was astonished how clear they said it's mainly needed from on the regulatory sector, that we need, for example, to make approvals easier for new buildings and so on. In Germany, it takes 6 years to get a new building, to get the administrative process. And if we want to change that, the energy efficiency in the construction sector, then we have to reduce it from 6 years to half a year or so. And let's say the legal processes has to be adapted. And so they had many examples where they said it's the most important is to have really the big solutions, and that would change the most. I don't know how you think about that.
I was just, the consumer I sort of understand, it was more I was trying to sort of say, we're trying to use finance to get companies to do better instead of just targeting companies to do better. And I understand why we do that. Because finance is incentivized to invest in companies that do badly if they're not having to pay for doing badly and are making money. It's just, I totally understand why we do that. I do just think there's so much focus on the finance sector, and I do just question myself sometimes why we don't put the same pressure on companies themselves. And then consumers, I think we just avoid like the plague, because we're just all so concerned that it's too political to go there, because obviously some people can't afford to make the changes and they shouldn't be expected to, and others could afford to do it, but sometimes they pay higher tax rates, and so governments don't want to pressure them to do better. So it was more sort of a philosophical debate really than one I particularly have an answer for. I mean, all three really, that would be my response. I do just want to say I'm loving this example of Mary's in the chat. It's a really great example. Thanks for sharing that.
I want to follow up on that about why not target companies. I'm asking myself, are these taxonomies that are coming into force, is that the idea? Like as of the first of the year, I think we have in the EU this EU climate or sustainable finance taxonomy, and it's heavily geared towards reporting requirements for companies. They have to, and then it seems that's a first step towards more. If we can see what they're doing and they have to report it, then we all are in a better position to target their activity. So is that really what's behind it? The UK is developing a taxonomy. You said South Africa is developing one. So what's your view on that?
My limited understanding of taxonomy, and again, Jeremy, it's probably better than me, and we do look at the taxonomy at the Institute, but it's not my beat, if you will, is that the taxonomy helps against greenwash. So it helps financial institutions and all the funds that are being developed make sure that they are investing in companies that are doing good things and not just saying they're doing good things. That was sort of my understanding of it. And yes, it will ensure that companies can understand the difference between green and brown and where they are on that spectrum. And I'm sort of unfair because the TCFD is a reporting framework for companies, as the TNFD will be on nature. So it's not like companies aren't being pushed, but we have regulation in place, and some companies don't adhere to environmental and pollution policy. And what is the punishment for that? In a lot of cases, it's just not. So I think it's just it's a strange, it takes government as well and civil society pressure, and it's a bit of an odd one. So I'm not sure I answered your question, Carol, sorry.
Yeah, I think so. And it's actually good. I wanted to, Jeremy, are you with us here? I can look at my list of participants. Yeah. So maybe we can hand it over to Jeremy for this taxonomy question.
There's a question of David, from David, and or a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in. Helen and Carol, I really like what you're saying, and the line of questions that you have. I'll say, as a consumer of a company job that is an employee of a company, what's extremely valuable to me, along with salary and benefits, are companies that run a sustainable business model and are contributing positively to the environment. There's definitely a problem of greenwashing. Certainly companies could market themselves as being green when they're actually not. But I think, Helen, along your point, are there other things that we could focus on besides finance? And I think yes. So finance is a tangible benefit. I think everyone understands that. But there's I think marketing yourselves to consumers and to employees also is of a great benefit. So if there is a agency or a sort of system that that the companies would allow to classify them, rate them in terms of how green they are, and then that same rating agency could be trusted by people looking for jobs like me. I'll give an example. Glassdoor is a fairly trusted source of how good is it to work for that company. So maybe it's Glassdoor or something, an independent agency like Glassdoor that could rate companies. But anyway, I don't have any answers. I just wanted to add that and chime in that I 100% agree that I think that there's some a lot of stuff, that there's a lot there to be harvested.
Thanks, David. I have the feeling we lost Jeremy, and I think it happened what he announced already in advance, that he said it's the last working day and he has to do some jobs today, and probably he can't do it all the time. So, and I also think we are losing a few of our participants, and perhaps we should just say that's a good point to come to the end of this seminar today. And yeah, I must say personally, I really liked what I heard today, and that was really impressive for me. And I really learned something which I didn't know. And I must say, I had now a series of 8 workshop seminars during the last 6 weeks, which are organized or hosted. And I think today's was perhaps the best one for me. So I picked up the most new information, and I'm really, really thankful and grateful to all our speakers. And I think you gave a really great input to us. And another thing which I also very much liked is that, I mean, that's a simple thing. It's internet, that it allows us to connect with people we never met before, and to discuss here on the same topics and issues. And I think what we should try to manage is to to get this also in the kind of sustainable network. And we try to work on that. And at least, and I think on the Durban-Bremen level, we can try to yes, to establish that as a stable, sustainable network. And yeah, but everybody is invited to stay in contact with us from Constructify, and we will take further initiatives in that direction. And what more to say? Thanks a lot to all of you who participated, who gave input, and who co-organized and helped to make this workshop, yes, to take place today. That's from my side. And yeah, I understood that all speakers will provide their presentations, and then we will make them available for all participants, and also yeah, post it on YouTube at the beginning of next year. And then let's keep in touch and exchange in future, and hopefully see you soon at any other occasion or opportunity. And of course, have a safe and yeah, good Christmas, relaxed Christmas time, and a good New Year. So that's from my side, and I would say bye-bye, and hopefully see you soon.